Amazing. All right. Well, welcome everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. This event will be recorded and we'll share a copy of the recording afterwards. I'm Otto Hanson, your moderator today, and I am here with the world famous pickleball star, Jessica
Yes.
Markowitz,
Yes.
president of Paragon, but really here in her capacity primarily as a pickleball
Yes.
ringer. And we're going to talk, we're going to have a great conversation today. We're covering a lot of really interesting topics. We're going to talk AI generally in the legal practice. We're going to talk about safety issues around AI and how to think about using AI safely, how to think about hallucinations, data security, training on your data, all of those juicy topics. Jessica's going to share a lot of really interesting insights about what her and her team have learned in their journey as a legal staffing organization, flex talent organization, in their journey adopting AI and helping clients with the same. And then we're going to talk a little bit and get creative and talk a little bit about where we think the future is going, where we think this all takes us. So lots and lots of great learnings coming out of this event. I am, by way of introduction, I'm a attorney by training. I practiced law for about 5 years at a large regional firm in Denver, Colorado as a corporate attorney. A little bit of M&A, commercial contracting, and everything in between. Peeled off from that world and started building legal technology solutions about 5 years ago. We're 5 years into the journey. I run two venture-backed technology product suites. TermScout is one of them, and Screens.ai is our newest one. We have a partnership with Paragon, which is part of why we're coming here today. Jessica and I have been in the trenches,
Yes.
struggling and experimenting with a number of the topics that we're going to talk about today. And we have a lot of really great learnings under our belts now. And we thought, hey, it's a great time to bring this out to the world, share what we've learned, and just start the conversation and share a little bit with everyone here. So without further ado,
Awesome.
Jessica, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So, I mean, the most important part, the pickleball, and I apologize to my team because they just really don't want to hear about it anymore, but such is life. So my name's Jessica Markowitz. I'm the president and COO of Paragon Legal. We're an ALSP that we focus on the flex talent for in-house teams across the US. So we manage overflow work, backfills, shifting work from law firms to in-house. And I think the highest value use case is, in my opinion, is to help right source the work from the legal team. And kind of what I think right sourcing, the term, is maybe not as well known. Everyone's familiar with AI. You can't escape it. Gen AI, legal tech. But right sourcing is a little bit less of a known term. Um, the old definition that I used to use for right sourcing was the right work getting done by the right people at the right price. But I think in the last few years, and especially with partnering with you and your team, Otto, that definition has definitely expanded to the right work getting done by the right people at the right price with the right technology. And so that's what Paragon does. We help people and legal departments right source. This partnership with you, Otto, and your team, and also at TermScout makes a lot of sense. So helping our attorneys who do the work, giving them the power and the tools to do the work better, faster, stronger, and deliver more to our clients. So with that, Otto, why don't you kind of dive into Gen AI and its role in legal?
Awesome. Happy to do that. And thanks for the introduction into the terminology behind this right sourcing concept, Jessica. So yeah, let's talk about Gen AI a little bit. I'll introduce some concepts that might help frame the conversation a little bit around generative AI. And I'll just start with, I think, what hopefully most people have come around to agree with today, which is that AI has really big potential in legal services. And that potential spans across so many different use cases, whether it's contract review, legal research, drafting, due diligence, and so much more. And those are some of the business use cases. And then there's a whole nother world of consumer-facing use cases that's even less touched. There's some regulatory hurdles around there that are, outside of the scope of what we'll review today. But suffice it to say, there's a huge justice gap in this world today, and a huge amount of unmet needs in terms of legal
Definitely.
services. And it's just a really exciting time, I think, to be thinking about and talking about AI, and to be thinking about talking about how we can leverage AI in legal services. but we're going to focus this conversation, of course, on the business use cases. I imagine most of the folks here, that's what we are most interested in, certainly what Jessica and I are most qualified to talk about. Um, I like to frame the benefits. You know, a lot of people ask the question, well, why even use AI? What's the driving force behind it? Why should we care? And there's a couple of obvious benefits, which I think are the ones that most people kind of count as table stakes expectations. Whether or not they're realized depends on the tool and the use case and a number of other factors. But the obvious ones are kind of time savings and cost reduction. Okay, that's, I think, what most people think about and talk about when they think about using AI. Um, there's a couple other ones that I think are really interesting. By the way, I think those are really great value propositions. But there are a couple of other ones. One is actually creativity. AI, it turns out, is really good at helping people find creative solutions to different problems. So I can give you an example from our
Yeah,
world, contract negotiations. We have a feature that lets a user highlight a clause and just ask the AI to give tips on how it might negotiate a clause. Now, that can get taken out of hand if you're blindly using the AI and just negotiating, letting the AI negotiate everything. We don't encourage you to do that. You should still use your judgment, but it is really nice. There have been a number of times where we or our customers have come and said, wow, you know, I used this feature and it gave me an idea. It highlighted something that actually was missing that really just wasn't on my mind. And so that creative function is a really interesting one. Some of the other ones that we see out there a lot are also actually reducing risk. You know, people think about there's fear around AI, and we'll talk a little bit more about that
yes,
in minutes. And some of that's justified for sure. And I think using AI thoughtfully can actually reduce a lot of risk in organizations. I'll give another example from our world. Screens.ai is a playbook executor. So it lets in-house legal teams build contract review playbooks, you know, automate their standards, and then automate the execution of those playbooks on their
yeah,
contracts. Well, this is a great risk reducer if you're using it thoughtfully, risk reducer if you're using it thoughtfully, because you can actually have it catch things for you that you might not have
right.
caught. And AI is really good at doing things like catching inconsistencies. You know, the classic example is something, a perfect ambiguity across different pages. So page one, it says, we will indemnify you for X. And then buried on page 43 somewhere, it says, notwithstanding anything to the contrary, we will never indemnify you for anything. And as a human, I'm highly likely to see that first indemnity and check my box and be like, great, we got our indemnity. You know, we're set. And not find the thing on page 47 that says, actually, that just kidding, we're not doing that. This stuff happens. And AI is actually really good at catching those. So reducing risk is a big one for me. Those are some of the benefits. But the benefits are not without cost. There are a lot of issues, you know, with AI today. It's not perfect. And some of the issues, you know, the big ones in my mind are accuracy issues. There have been reports,
Yeah,
in particular when it comes to creative tasks, subjective tasks, like write a brief for me. You can get some really disparate results or inconsistent results. So you have to be pretty thoughtful about that.
and those
Um,
are the ones we hear about in the news.
Totally.
Yeah,
And I think the biggest risk, honestly, of AI is actually a human risk, not an AI risk. It's the risk that that a lawyer, a licensed attorney, does what that guy did with the Chinese airline cases and, you know, uses AI to do legal research and doesn't check its work and
yeah,
just blindly throws those into the memo and submits it to the court under his law firm's name. And that's the biggest use, but it really is not an AI risk. It's a human risk. And we tell all of our customers, Jessica, and I know you and your team agree with
yeah,
this, you know, it's not just like if you're using a paralegal or even a junior attorney to support you, it's your job at the end of the day to certify that the work is good. You have to do your due.
right.
And it's you, the attorney, who is ultimately responsible for your work product, regardless of what happens under the hood or how you get to that work product. So I think that's actually the biggest risk, the human risk there. But there are other risks. There's there's trust issues around AI. And the reality is AI doesn't have context. I call it the context gap. it doesn't know everything about your transaction or who you are or
Yeah.
what, the history of your clients and the like. So, look, we're trying to solve some of these problems with screens. It's not perfect by any means, but we're doing a really, really good job, as you know, Jessica, on
Yep.
the review pieces of this problem. And I think the real power of AI today is in pairing AI with professionals who are really thoughtful and who have the background of understanding where some of the shortcomings of AI
Yep.
today are, and AI specifically being used in specific tasks or workflows. This can help reduce the knowledge gap because that attorney brings the context from the client into play. They add
Hmm.
trust because they are themselves quality controlling the work of the AI. And it can really be a force multiplier for attorney productivity. So,
Yeah,
a big part
I
of what
agree.
excites us about partnering with you guys, and teaming up with really any type of attorney resource on the Paragon team is we can really work together to fill out some of the
Yep.
human deficiencies on the human side and some of the technological deficiencies on the tech side. So that's a little bit of the background from my perspective on AI.
Yeah.
And Jessica, maybe I'll hand it back to you to share a little bit of kind of your perspective on Paragon's approach to AI adoption.
Yeah. Thanks, Otto. That was very helpful. And unlike Otto and his team at Screens and TermScout, Paragon, we're not a tech company. We don't play a tech company on TV. We are in the business of people, and we've been in the business of people since 2006. So when we kind of proposed this partnership with your team, Otto, there was definitely questions about, especially for me in particular, was I cannibalizing my business? If our business is fundamentally, what do we sell? We sell people's time. And if we can do things faster, isn't that just bad for business? And ultimately, no. And I think that comes down to our approach to AI and also just our approach to what we do. Um, First of all, I think this partnership is awesome because I led it, and uh, yeah, I'm gonna pat myself on the back for that. But more seriously, we're a business that has grown for 20 years by putting people first, and that's both for our attorneys and for our clients alike. So, and we need to continue to deliver the best in class for our clients and for our attorneys. And so we recognize through that kind of framework of how do we continue to put people first and deliver, our clients demand the best service from our team. So if there's an opportunity for us to help our team provide a better level of service, we're going to make sure they have access to the right tools, and we're putting them in the best possible position to do that. Our attorneys are interested in what's going on in these rapid changes in technology, and they're highly skilled, they're very experienced, and they're very engaged. And so they have their pulse on what's kind of going on, and they want to be on the forefront of what's happening, and they demanded of us to kind of have on the pulse. And then lastly, it's good for business. It's a tool for attorneys to do their work better, not, and we hear this saying, it's the attorney with the right technology. It's not the technology by itself. So we don't believe here, and I don't think, Otto, you believe either, that this is going to fully replace attorneys in any way. But if our attorneys can do the work better, faster, more efficient, and our clients are happy, they're going to come back to us. They're going to come back to Paragon. There is so much work out there. There's not enough hours in the day to get it all done. So for us, it's a win. The last thing I'll kind of say on our just overall approach here is that what differentiates us from many of our competitors is that we don't view the win as making the match between the attorney and the client. The win for us is the successful engagement. So that's months, years, really. And we make a lot of our decisions on how we invest in the business here at Paragon based on that philosophy. So it makes perfect sense to me if we we are not a tech company and we're going to make investments in AI. It's going to be, how do we serve our attorneys and our clients better? And so that's why for this partnership and us working together, it makes perfect sense, contrary to kind of what it may look on paper when you're like, a way to do the work faster, maybe that's not as good. And that's the struggle you kind of see with law firms today, which I don't feel that pressure. I'm really excited to be able to deliver more to our clients.
Well, and it's amazing that that directive is coming from the top of the organization, right? It's coming directly from the leadership. And you can, I'm sure every law firm, in fact, I was an attorney at a law firm who, felt the same way you did and felt like, hey, I'm going to adopt technology. I'm going to be really proactive about this, even if it might be superficially, antithetical to my own incentives.
Right.
And but to hear it come from the top is so exciting. I can tell you personal anecdotes. Like, we sell to law firms as well, and a meaningful percent of them will come right out in a demo with us and say, the problem with this is it's against my incentives. My incentives
I
aren't
get
to
it.
reduce time spent. I don't want to save time. And it's
Totally get it.
they'll say it to us. Obviously, I don't
Yeah.
think they're saying that to their clients. And I think, and I commend you and the other service providers out there who are taking the long view
Yeah.
on this and thinking a lot more strategically about how to add value to your clients. I think it's a really smart
Yeah.
business. And
Yeah. I mean, I will take all the compliments you want to dish, but in reality, it's just, it from my perspective and from Paragon's perspective, it's just smart business. The work is out there. And it's just, how can you do it better, faster, stronger?
And you guys are walking the walk too. I mean, I mentioned earlier that we have a partnership, but I failed to actually say what it is. But for those of you who don't know, what Jessica and her team have done, what we partnered together to do is enable any Paragon client who wants to take advantage of what we're calling the Paragon Contract AI bundle to do that as a complementary part of their engagement with Paragon. And
Yep.
so they've actually come out and said, when you hire a Paragon resource, that resource comes with a suite of contract AI technology solutions. We're not charging you. We're not sending anything back. We're paying for it. And we're putting our money
Exactly.
where our mouth is. We're investing in the relationship. And a number of Paragon clients are seeing, I think, really awesome benefits from the partnership. We'll
Yeah.
talk one
Yeah.
later in the webinar. That's just a great anecdote of the magic that happens when a service provider kind of takes a big step like this.
Yeah. Well, on that, I'm out there talking a lot to our clients and prospects about AI, and the thing that pops up all of the time as kind of the number one hesitation after people are like, "Oh, that's so cool," it's data and security, safety. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask some of the tough questions that I get, and I'm sure you get as well. They're probably on people's mind. So, privacy, data security, they're big issues. How does Screens address these head on?
Yeah, really great question, and totally agree. These are really big issues. And look, we've heard from clients over and over again one very clear thing, which is it is not okay for our legal tech vendors to train AI on our data, really to use our data for any purpose other than to provide the services. And we took that feedback really seriously when we launched Screens. And we make a very, very clear promise to our customers that we do not train our AI on your data. We do not use our customers' data for any purpose other than to provide the services. And we go a step further and make clear that any sub-processors that we use that will touch your data, that we will get reciprocal promises from them. And indeed, we have reciprocal promises from them in our contract. So that's step one, more on the privacy, confidentiality, AI training. Simple answer is, I think the best vendors recognize how important this is and are making really clear promises in their contracts. I do encourage users out there looking at AI solutions. This is one contract, your contract with your legal tech vendors, that you do need to look at very, very carefully and see. And I won't throw any of our competitors under the bus, but I will say, if you look at some of them, you will see a lot of vague language about what they do with your data and how they protect their data. we did a webinar with David Tollin just a month ago, looking at a lot of LLM vendors and comparing some of those terms. And there's a whole spectrum of language, and the best in class companies clearly promise we're not going to use your data, period, except to provide the services. So
Well,
that's part one.
you've been seeing in the news some very large enterprise companies come out with their policies and then, be vague and then get a lot of pushback from just the legal community and just users in general of, hey, and then that's not what you want, from consumer facing and, software, but definitely also not from business to business software as well.
Especially for business to business software, and especially if you're a law firm or an ALSP or something like
Yeah.
that, it's even more important because, of course, you guys are really thoughtful, careful custodians. In fact, you were some of the people that came to us in the very beginning of our partnership and said, we can't take any risks with our client data. And we said,
Yeah.
let's work together to make sure that this is risk-free. So
Yeah.
nothing, of course, is totally risk-free, but to the extent that we can, we are reducing as much of that risk as possible. So
Yeah.
that's data privacy. On the data security side, we as a company are, taking this issue very seriously as well. We're SOC 2 certified, which means we work with an independent outside auditor who comes in and audits all of our systems, from our password policies to our encryption policies to, penetration testing to try to hack our systems. And, it's a very, very comprehensive,
Yeah.
very formal system. We just got our annual audit report back a few weeks ago. 0 vulnerabilities found, perfect bill of health. Really, really proud of what we're doing there and our team on the data security. So, this is something you want to look at with any AI
Yeah.
vendor as well, I think, is just, do they have any type of SOC 2, ISO
Yeah.
27, or similar type certifications to help you get comfortable that they're taking the security stuff seriously.
So the other big thing that we get asked, and I'm sure with any AI tool, and you've seen some things in the news, how accurate is the screen system?
Yeah, great question. We get asked this over and over again. We actually just published a report answering this question. You can find it on our blog at screens.ai, but basically the short answer is 97.5%. Now, the more nuanced answer is there's only certain tasks that are easy to measure accuracy on.
Mm.
Okay. And what we've done at Screens is isolated those tasks and said, if we can measure accuracy, we will. And a simple framework that we use is subjective tasks like redlining a contract. That's a subjective task, right? Because if you give
Right.
5 attorneys the same task,
Yeah.
hey, redline this to fix X, all of them are going to do it a little different. And which one's right, it's too subjective to measure. So
Right.
our platform does do redlining, but we don't attempt to wade into the murky water of trying to figure out how to measure the effectiveness of that. We do measure how often we recommend a red line. Do our customers actually use the red line? And those numbers are really, really good and really encouraging. But what we can test is a lot of what our platform does, as I mentioned earlier, is playbook execution. What that means is
Yep.
your company might say, hey, all of our vendors have to indemnify us for third-party IP infringement. That is an objective test, and we
Right.
can measure whether or not the AI gets that right on a large set of contracts. So there are hundreds and hundreds of standards that we've tested on, that we've benchmarked AI against. We use this internally to optimize our AI, and the long and the short of it is, the most recent study that we did revealed 97.5% accuracy on the detection of whether or not a standard is met in a contract. We're
Yeah.
really, really proud of that number.
That's awesome. So the last question here on the tool is, does it hallucinate? Because you've heard about the hallucinations. Those are the things that get in the news.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of confusion out there in the world around what hallucinations means, what they are, and there's I think different people have different definitions. But the way I think of a hallucination is an AI program giving you a fact that is clearly false, that it
Yeah.
hallucinated, that it made up. And again, what we're doing is detecting whether or not a standard is met in a contract. Sometimes we get it wrong. 2.5% of the time, we get that detection wrong. I don't personally think of that as a hallucination. I think it's more, these are more reasoning errors or retrieval misses, or there are other things that cause those errors. In the good news about what we do, and when you isolate your AI use case to contracts, to contract negotiation, contract review, contract drafting, the really nice thing, Jessica, is we have a single artifact that is the source of truth, which is the contract
Right.
itself. It's right there. And so all we have to do as a legal tech company is make it really easy for you to audit the results quickly. And
Yep.
so whether or not we get something wrong, we always make it as easy as possible for you to audit the results with one click of the mouse, see the source language in the contract, so you can catch those couple percentage points of the time when it does make a
Yep.
mistake.
Awesome. Well, this is helpful, and thanks for taking the minute in the hot seat on the questions that I know people are thinking about, and I get asked when I have these conversations as well. Um, so, looking at kind of time, I want to make sure we have some time to bring this together and then also open it up for some questions. So maybe we can move to kind of, what does this all mean?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think that's great, Jessica. And maybe you could start with sharing some of the insights of what you think this means for the future of legal services. What does the future legal department look like given all of
Yeah.
this?
Yeah, I think that's a great place to kind of go to for wrapping it up. At the beginning, I mentioned the definition of right sourcing. So the right people doing the right work at the right price with the right technology. Um, and what this means for the practice is that legal teams are leveraging all of the terrible metaphor, for the last several years. I'd even say it goes, especially the last two, the budget pressure in legal has been felt across businesses of every shape, size, and it's been really challenging from a budget perspective, and that puts a lot of focus and spotlight on how are you spending your money and how are you making sure you're getting the highest value for every dollar spent. It also doesn't really help from a legal landscape perspective that different than 10 years ago. I think every business now is a regulated business, with data privacy, with all of the advances in technology, and then who knows how it's going to shake out. Who knows how it's going to shake out with the AI regulation that's starting to come out now. So the legal landscape itself is just much more complicated than ever, and it's only getting more so. And the constant cycle of law firm prices go up, legal departments lose headcount, people burn out, the cycle goes on. So the future of legal is really dependent on right sourcing, in my opinion, because legal departments don't have any choice, again, to get the highest value for every dollar they spent. So what does that look like in practice? And my view is, the bet the farm work, you go to your big law firm, the huge M&A, the huge litigation, you're happy to pay for your law firm to, tuck you in every night and tell you everything's going to be okay. It's worth that. And then you think about your in-house legal team. You want to staff your in-house legal team to the trough of the work so that you aren't managing a fixed cost when the work isn't there, because we all know that legal work ebbs and flows. And then you manage the ebb and flows by leveraging flex talent to kind of handle the highs and make sure that you can kind of turn it off when you're in an ebb or a flow, whichever one is the lower one, really sure. And then the key to all of that is to make sure that each of these groups, it's not that one is better than the other, it's having them work in harmony. I think that's the musical saying. But they're also all leveraging the best technology so that they're each member of this team that makes up getting the work done is working at the highest level of their skill set and doing it in the most efficient way. So that's kind of what I view, and where Paragon sits and where I'm making my bet as to what does this look like. And you see that starting to transform today. And I think we're just kind of at the tip of the iceberg there.
Yeah, I love the insight and just the distinction. I don't feel like a lot of people talk about that middle tier of flex talent enough, but you guys really are leading the charge in bringing this concept to market that can really handle that ebb and flow. And I think a lot of traditional
Yep.
legal departments use big firms to handle that
Yep.
ebb and flow, and it's extremely costly, especially with rates rising as much as they have. And you've had a lot of great posts on LinkedIn about that
Yeah.
phenomena, which has been awesome to follow. But yeah, let me share. Maybe I can share
Yeah.
an example, a real world example of this that just came up organically. A couple of weeks ago, I took a demo with the general counsel of a small biotech company, and we get on the call. He wants to see screens, and so we show him. We walk him through the platform. We show everything to him. We have a great conversation. He really likes the tool. We're flattered and honored and humbled and excited to work with him. And as we're getting to know him a little bit, he mentions that he uses a flex talent provider, and it turns out that it's Paragon, and he has a Paragon resource who's actually a very senior resource who does a lot of the ebb and flow sort of overflow work. And he actually says something which I thought was really amazing. He says, this resource that we have, she's so good and she's so wise. I really use her as a crutch to teach me things. She's teaching me a lot of things, not just a sort of, I don't know what other people think when they think of flex talent, but I think there's some people that might assume that it's kind of, ebb and flow. Maybe there are lower level resources, but he was
Yeah.
like, this is my crutch. This is
Yeah.
my for this person,
Yeah.
the newer VC to a company. And and so it turns out the conversation pivots away from them becoming a Screens client, because guess what? As a Paragon client, he already has access to the tool. And so we actually transferred and got him set up on Screens. But he also
Yeah.
said one other thing that I thought was really cool. He said when he shared that it was Paragon that he was working with, and I mentioned that we have this partnership with
Yeah.
Paragon, he says, that explains why she's able to turn things around so darn fast for me. He says every time I send her a contract, she sends me back red lines or whatever, the deliverable in record time. And I've always been scratching my head saying, how is she so fast? She's busy. She's got multiple clients. Like, this is amazing. And it all came together that, it appears
Yeah.
though she's doing exactly what we're talking about here, being really
Exactly.
thoughtful about leveraging technology to make her more efficient, even though, as Jessica said, it could be conceived as, cannibalizing some of her business. But look at what a great vocal advocate and great
Yeah.
customer.
I love it. That's an awesome story. So wrapping this whole thing up, um, what advice do you have to someone looking to upskill or stay up to date? And hopefully we can wrap
Yeah,
this up
I'll
in
keep
like
it
1 or 2 minutes
because I
because I
see a
do some
number of
questions coming
questions
in
coming
in
in.
the
I know I'm
chat.
kind of over
Yeah.
this. My advice to the world right now is get out there and pick a tool or two and go start playing with it.
Yeah.
It's easy to get into analysis paralysis and think, oh my gosh, I have to see everything that's out there. Pick a company that'll let you do a month to month. If a company comes and says, gosh, you need an annual or a multi-year commitment, to me that's a red flag, right? That there's
Yep.
something wrong with that product if you have
Mm.
to, if you can't even try it
Yeah.
before. But pick something that'll let you go on a month-to-month contract, try it. And advice I got when I was in law school was, if you want to be a great lawyer, you need to not just be a master of the legal domain, but you also need to be a master and thoughtful about process and about technology.
I
And that's
totally
my
agree.
that's my advice to every law student or
Yeah.
junior attorney that I meet. And it's even more relevant now in a world of rapidly changing,
Yeah.
landscape.
Awesome. Well, we have one question. I think it's for you, Otto. How do you keep the input prompts and the output data confidential so that they do not go outside the client's organization?
Yeah, great question. So, well, we can't keep it entirely outside of your organization. Your prompts and your inputs do have to come to us, and they do have to go to our two sub-processors. We use Amazon Web Services and OpenAI. Those are the two sub-processors that we use that touch our customers' data. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we have very clear contracts from each of them that they will not use your data to train AI or for any purposes other than to provide the services. So all three of us and those two sub-processors make that very clear promise to you. Beyond that, it's data security. It's making sure that we're doing all the right things in terms of passwords and encryption and everything else to protect your data and make sure it doesn't leave your organization. Great question.
Another one is the 97, I think you said 97.5. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Accuracy. Can you give some guidance on how you measure that? And against what, and what is the accuracy of a human?
Yeah, well, the accuracy of a human review is a really interesting question. And I honestly don't know if you put me and if you gave me 1,000 contract review problems, how many of those do I get wrong? Not because I can't do it, but probably because we humans are just sometimes we zone out. I don't know about you, Jessica, but
Yeah.
sometimes my brain's working better than other times. So, I don't know that I do much better than 97.5, to answer the question of how we measured that, basically what we did is we took a large data set. In this case, in the most recent study, it was 720 objective contract review problems, such as the vendor, asking the AI to check whether the vendor indemnifies the customer for third-party IP infringement. So that's a standard. We tested that against dozens of contracts and lots of standards. I think there were, I can't remember, 120 different standards across 51 different contracts. It's all in the report, but basically pretty large data set. And we asked the AI to go answer those questions, to test for those standards. And then we had a human go in and check its work. And whenever there was a discrepancy to account for the human review issue, like what if the AI actually got it right? A second human would kind of arbitrate and go and look at it. So we'd have two sets of eyes on it. And that's how we came upon that number. The whole methodology is actually published on our blog in a multi-page report. And we even published instructions on how you can actually repeat the study yourself and test for yourself. So we've open source sort of the methodology in case somebody wants to go check our work.
I love that you can have, that openness. Not here it is what it is. You can go do it, you can replicate it yourself. There's no kind of wizard behind the curtain there.
Yeah. Here's a question for you from the
Yeah.
audience, Jessica. How do you think about the trade-offs between in-house teams procuring legal tech independently versus
Yeah.
obtaining it kind of indirectly through a service relationship like Paragon?
Yeah. So I think we kind of have to there's the embedded tech, you think the CLMs, the e-billing, things that, you implement over months and months and months, that that wouldn't make sense for a flex talent provider. But for tools like screens, like TermScout, I think it's a really interesting question because through us, you get to test, you get to try. There's no commitment. You also get to learn from someone, the attorney on our team, who is trained on the tool. So not only are you, and so I think it's there's benefits there, to be able to have someone who knows how to use the tool, who's actually using it for the work. You can either use it yourself or have other people on your team use it. You can see the results of the Paragon attorney using it. So there's really interesting, it's an interesting way to test new technology that, versus do you go through, do you do your RFP? Do you find these different tools, and then bring them on? That takes a lot of work and time. So there's an experimental aspect of this that I think's really positive. And then if you love it, you can keep it. And so I think there's a lot of benefits with those tools that, the contract review tools and tools that you can kind of bring with you that through a relationship and a partnership like ours.
I love that. And we've also seen some clients kind of say some version of maybe it's easier for us to procure flex talent
Yep.
and it's for us to procure technology. There's different processes that we have to follow.
Totally.
Comes out, maybe they come out of different budgets. And so it's just another option for how
Yeah.
you navigate your own internal policies and
Yeah.
procedures. It just provides another route to getting legal technology in your hands quickly, depending on the bureaucracy that you have to deal with.
Yeah. And that's real, especially at those larger enterprise companies on how things are purchased. So I think that's a great point as well.
Yeah. Here's another question. How do screens compare to GCAI? I'm guessing that's Google Cloud AI. So yeah, really great question. Google Gemini, Google's latest model, really powerful model. So Gemini is an LLM, a large language model, that is a competitor to OpenAI's latest model, GPT-4o, which is competitor to Anthropic's latest model, Claude 3.5, I think is their latest. What we're doing as a company is testing each of those models against that validation set that I described earlier that we're using to benchmark our own accuracy against. So we can actually take OpenAI, plug it in to that evaluation set, and see how GPT-4o performs against that evaluation set. Then we can unhook that and plug in Claude 3.5, for example. And on those two, Claude 3.5 just came out a couple of weeks ago. The difference was like 0.7% accuracy. So it's like GPT-4o got 97.5% on the evaluation set. Claude 3.5 got, I think, 96.8 or something like that, which may not sound like a big difference, but actually what that means is that's a whole, it's actually a major increase in terms of the quantity of errors that you're going to see. So it's a meaningful increase. All that's to say, of all the models we've tested on so far and all the techniques that we've tested on, today, OpenAI GPT-4o is clearly the best in terms of just the engine that drives the AI application.
Awesome. Well, we only have about 1 minute left. So do we want to, Otto, do you want to pick one more question?
Yeah, let me Jessica, maybe this is a good one. This one is for you. How has your team felt about incorporating the screens tool? What kind of pushback
Yeah.
or concern or feedback have you guys gotten?
Yeah, I think overall generally positive because I think people are excited to kind of get their hands dirty and trying new things. I think with anything that is changed, there's always hesitation. And then there's a learning curve. But I would say overall it's positive. People on our team in the Paragon world want to kind of know what's out there. They want to be able to touch and feel and see the latest tech and not just kind of read about it and kind of be a part of what's happening and not just sit on the sidelines. So overall positive, without, you know, with I would say a little bit of questioning, which I think is kind of normal for where we are in this kind of cycle and trend.
Maybe a healthy skepticism,
Yes, a healthy skepticism.
looking at the details and making sure people understand what's going on and what the risks are. Yeah, I think that's smart.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think we are at our time at 45 minutes. So Otto, thank you so much for chatting with me this morning / this afternoon. Always fun when we do it behind closed doors. It's fun to actually do it with other people joining. So that's awesome.
Really great getting to chat with you here, Jessica. Hey, one last question before we leave. What is the opposite of right sourcing?
Oh, what is the opposite? I think it's just doing it the way things have always been done.
It's good. It's wrong
Yeah.
sourcing.
Wrong
It's
sourcing.
wrong.
Oh,
It's not the right thing to do.
it's not the right
Take
thing to
anything away
do.
from this webinar today, don't make that career faux pas. Go at
Yes.
least talk to Jessica and her team or any Flex talent provider. It's a
Yes.
really interesting way to think about managing the stack of different jobs that need to be done in your legal organization. So, all right,
Awesome.
shameless plug to end the
Yeah.
day. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Otto.
Everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.